Hey guys, my name's Mansavage. This is going to be my Unit 4 screencast for the observations of Week 3. My location, as before, is going to be the Palmer Hay Flats, located on the bluff off of Fairview Loop. The weather station that I will be taking my National Weather Service data from is actually going to be the Wasilla Airport, which is only, as a crow flies, about 8 miles from my location. So it actually reflects a lot of the same data that was seen at my actual observation post at my home. My observations for that week were conducted primarily between 2 and 4 p.m. And it seemed to reflect pretty close to what the National Weather Service observed. Obviously, the National Weather Service is observing a 24-hour period, while we were just taking observations all as well as 24-hour periods, but we are using our segments from one time period of the day. So there will be some discrepancies, but there is a pretty good similarity between the two. Here's my temperature chart for the week of my observations. As you can see, my observations obviously started on the 30th and ended on the 3rd. I'm just going to begin with giving you guys the data that I collected from that week, and then I'll correspond it with what the National Weather Service data relates. Beginning with Wednesday, we had a temperature of 34 degrees with a cloud cover of 7 to about 8 octals. It was a heavy cloud cover. There was no precipitation, and there was a 5-mile-per-hour wind to the east. Following was Thursday with a temperature of 32 degrees, along with a cloud cover of 8 octals of heavy cloud cover. Nimbostratus clouds is what I observed, although they were altostratus clouds that I could have been mistaken to be. But those were both for Wednesday and Thursday. Moving on, on Thursday there was no precipitation with that, with zero wind. Following on Friday was clear, 28 degrees, along with no cloud cover and no wind. Along with Saturday, there was no cloud cover as well. It was clear with the temperature of 34 degrees, no precipitation obviously, with a wind from the east at 5 miles per hour. Ending with Sunday, few clouds, 1 to 2 octals, with a temperature of 34 degrees. Precipitation was none, along with a wind that was at 0 miles per hour, and that was the case for most of the day in that actual weekend, besides a little bit of a pickup on that Saturday with a 5-mile-per-hour wind. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of correlate, as you can see, taking the values from the max, the left and the right, max and the min from the left and right temperatures. You can see there's some differences, but there's actually a pretty good correlation with the trend from the 30th to the 3rd, with it drastically warming up and staying pretty much warm the entire time, besides a dip on Friday night of the 1st. Besides that, it seems to follow pretty well. Like I said, the spikes you see in the National Weather Service chart is going to just be from the 24-hour periods where there may have been a small wind that came in for an hour and raised the temperature and the pressure lowered. But that's not going to be observable for us that when we were taking it just once a day. Like I said, obviously we have the temperature values for a 24-hour period, although for our observations those are going to be the times of the day. I'm going to move on to the pressure chart and go over what we saw with pressure compared to what I observed. Here's my pressure chart for the week of the 27th through the 5th, but obviously from the 3rd to the 30th for my observations. Just looking at it from now, as you can see, it's a pretty simple chart, but it just shows that my observations were pretty close to what that of the National Weather Service, with the obvious trend of the pressure dropping and the temperature rising. For my observations, I'll just give you guys what I had for actual data. On Wednesday, I had 1,013 bars of pressure. Thursday was 1,012 bars. Friday, 1,009 bars. Saturday, 999 bars, and ending on Sunday with 992 bars. And again, this looks to be fairly correlated with the chart. Although it did not, I did not measure the spike on the 31st, the low pressure drop on the 1st. Although that night when it got cold, as I just mentioned in the previous, we did see the spike in pressure from there. So we may have seen an actual just gradual change had it not been for that high pressure coming in. So now I'm going to move on to the clouds observations and talk about the weather maps and how I observed what I observed from throughout the day just by seeing compared to what I see based on the maps given. This would begin our first weather map for my first day of observation on Wednesday, January 30th, 2013. As you can see, or as I should say, I am located in the south central area of Alaska. This is going to be based right at the top of Cook Inlet from the map. It's obviously a blown out view of the map, but what you can see is a warmer front coming in to the north with a cold front coming in from the a warm front coming in from the south and a cold front coming in from the north. The cloud cover does reflect a little bit of what we had for that day, and the pressure seems to be pretty close with that, with the pressure system coming from the west coast of Alaska with the 985 pressure and the lower pressure of 992. The pressure system below the lower pressure system down in the Gulf of Alaska may have influenced the higher pressure as well, which we did have a pressure of 1,013 on Wednesday. We did have warmer weather that day as well, so the lower pressures coming up from the Gulf of Alaska could have very well influenced that. Thursday, we had the cold front move through, but it did not affect us as much. Forecast was saying fog. I don't remember observing fog. I did not record any fog. There was at least no fog during my observation at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But as you can see, there are numerous low pressure systems in the south central area with very close pressure pressure data compared to mine. There's also a higher pressure system coming in from the northwest, or excuse me, east, coming out of Canada into Alaska, and as well as a high pressure system coming from the west towards Nome, where there's also a lower pressure system building with a warm front heading north. As you can see, there seems to be, I wish I knew a little bit more about it, but a low pressure system deep in the Gulf of Alaska that seems to be building a pretty good sized storm. I'm going to guess that by the kind of a swirling effect of the clouds and the low pressure system pushing north, but yet making a counterclockwise rotation. Friday was cloud cover most of the day with the small low front on the Gulf of Alaska and on the Aleutian chain. We didn't see the low front come through us. Although Friday for my observation was clear. It's showing clouds for some of the day, but that very well could have been just a clear spot throughout the afternoon. And as you can see, there's some warmer weather getting pushed up towards south central as well with this low front with the 996 degree bars, and that would match pretty close with my observed 1,009. But again, it would be part of what day it was. Saturday, there was we were clear skies. It calls for snow, but we saw clear all day. As you can see, there's a low front pushing to the northwest from Canada, as long as a low pressure system building in the Aleutian chain pushing north. Looks like a cold front is also being pushed from that to the east. but with no systems over us, and that was pretty clear from my observations as well for that week. And then ending on Sunday, there was a low pressure system throughout south central and eastern Alaska, with a larger low pressure system building in the Aleutian chain. I did observe few clouds that day with no wind, but you could tell, and I believe it snowed the next couple days after that. So this very well could have been the system that brought the temperature down a little bit with this higher pressure system that you see coming up to southeast Alaska Panhandle. But moving on to that would be our maps and geoimages, which seem to pretty well correlate for my observations on that Friday, although I'm going to have to disagree with the infrared. I don't know how I can disagree. Obviously, it's happened, but on Friday I did not observe any clouds, and that was at 3 o'clock, and that seems to be observing at 1 o'clock, so that could have been possible. The water vapor, and there was no sunlight as well on that particular day for the visible, but for the water vapor, it kind of very much reflects what the infrared was saying, as along with what the TV weather map was showing. Seemed like there was a system that was being brewed in the bottom of the Aleutian chain, and then a system that was coming up from the south up the Panhandle and into south central Alaska into the Bering Sea eventually. This does reflect the maps data given on for that day, based on the water vapor and infrared maps. But overall, it was interesting to see the infrared correlations between the infrared, the water vapor, and the TV weather maps, as far as what I observed. Now, what it seems, it's as much as we all know, is Alaska's weather's changing dramatically all the time. We have to consider that even though we may observe cloud cover or a system in 1 second, it could be completely different in the next. So, but as far as my observations at my station went, it was nothing crazy, nothing weird. I do have a picture I took the following Monday. That would be the 4th. It was just a beautiful sunrise when I got up to go to work, and it was an interesting cloud that would be good. Maybe I'll just post it on the discussion board for open discussion, but it was an interesting picture with just a beautiful picture. But that's my screencast for the week. Thank you.